Good day. It's JJ MMA. Today we are going to be breaking down the UFC Fight Night card that will be taking place in Western Australia, in Perth more specifically, tomorrow, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event. And we've got a pretty good card ahead of us. This is a very good Fight Night card. Pretty stacked main card, to be honest, for a Fight Night. And pretty good prelims. One of the best main events of a Fight Night on paper that I've ever seen. Let's get it started with the first fight of the night, Dom Marfan versus Cody Steele. And, I'm going to pick Dom Marfan to win this one. I think that if it stays on the feet, which I believe that it will, Dom Marfan's got a size advantage. I can see him. If Cody Steele starts shooting takedowns, I think that he's going to stuff all of Cody Steele's takedowns. And, he'll get double underhooks and keep it on the feet. And Dom Marfan has a big advantage over Cody Steele on the feet. I don't know why he's an underdog right here. Good reach advantage, 4-inch reach advantage. Highlight that right here. And then, decided height advantage, 5'11 to 5'9. Yeah, I think Dom Marfan gets this one done. Cody Steele's coming off a loss to Rongju, and, it wasn't a very good loss at all. He got knocked down by Rongju. And Rongju's not a bad fighter, but, regardless, I just don't see Cody Steele beating Dom Marfan after what he showed against Rongju. And, last time he fought was a year ago, so Dom Marfan's got the fresher legs, and I think he will win this one by a first-round knockout. I think there's going to be a lot of finishes on this card. I think it's going to be that type of fight night, So I'm going to pick Dom Marfan by round one knockout, and we'll move on to the next one, and that's going to be Jonathan McCallef versus Themba Gorimbo. And for this one, I think that Themba Gorimbo is a pretty obvious layup matchup for Jonathan McCallef. Jonathan McCallef, he's coming off a win against Oban Elliott, and, he made it look pretty easy against Oban Elliott. So, I think that he makes it look easy against Themba Gorimbo. I don't think that there's any reason to bet against Jonathan McCallef here. Jonathan McCallef, he's good on the ground, he's good on the feet. He's rangy. And yeah, I know there's no reach advantage here. Both these guys have crazy reaches for welterweights, both 77-inch reaches. But yeah, I just think that Jonathan McCallef, he's going to school Themba Gorimbo here. If I'm not mistaken, I think that Themba Gorimbo is on the older side. I think he's going to show some athletic regression in this fight. And I'm going to pick Jonathan McCallef to win this one. To be honest, probably by submission or decision. I'm going to take a look at the finish numbers here. I do think that Jonathan McCallef's probably going to win by a submission in round two. I think he might catch Themba Gorimbo in a guillotine or something like that. Or maybe, he takes down Themba Gorimbo, ground and pound TKO, Aussie style. And to start out the card, I got two Australians winning, defending the home turf. And Jonathan McCallef, submission round two is my pick. We move on to the next one. Ben Johnston versus Wes Schultz. And Ben Johnston, not Ben Johnson as in the coach for the Bears, but Ben Johnston here, he stepped in on short notice because somebody was supposed to face Wes Schultz here, and they pulled out. So, they pulled Ben Johnston off of the regional scene. And, I actually do know something about him. This guy, he's on the older side. He's 35 years old. But yeah, he's a pretty decent striker. He's got a good ground game. 80% of his wins are by submission. It looks like to me that 80% and 20%. Yeah, it looks like all of his fights are finishes. So, I think this is going to be a finish. It looks like at least all of his wins are finishes. And party time Wes Schultz. You think you're going to beat Ben Johnston here after getting exploded on by D Penis, D Penis, yeah. So, his last fight was Damian Penis, and, Penis exploded all over him. And I think that Ben Johnston's going to do the same. I think that this is going to be a explosive performance from Ben Johnston. We're being serious now. And, I think that Ben Johnston will probably win by TKO. I think he will get a TKO over Wes Schultz. in the first round. I think that maybe he takes him down and just ground and pounds him, or he catches him on the chin, on the feet. Wes Schultz, he's pretty decently chinny. I mean, even though he did fight Damian Penis and D Penis, he has really good striking. D Penis is a legit prospect, and after the Penis performance, I think that Ben Johnston, I think Ben Johnston will do the same to him. Ben Johnston will make easy work of Party Time Wes Schultz here. I got him winning by TKO in the first round. There you go. We move on. Colby Thicknesse versus Vince Morales. Thicknesse's only losses to Alexandre Topuria. Obviously, not a bad loss to have on your resume. He's decently rangy for a bantamweight, even though Vince Morales does have the 1-inch reach advantage. I think that Colby Thicknesse is going to win this one. Colby Thicknesse, he's a good grappler. Vince Morales obviously does have some decent ground game too. He's got good submissions, decent on the feet, crafty vet. Even though the record's bad, he's better than his record looks. 16-10 right here. So, he's coming off a loss, and that loss is to Raul Rosas Jr., so that's not a very bad loss to have on your resume either. However, this guy hasn't fought in a year, and he did just get blobbed by Raul Rosas Jr. Colby Thicknesse has similar grappling to Raul Rosas Jr., except, he's more able to threaten a submission than Raul Rosas Jr. is. So, I think that Colby Thicknesse is going to win this one, and I think he'll win by decision. I think he'll win by a pretty close 29-28 decision. I think that he'll win on the feet a little bit. There will be some scary moments for him on the feet just because Vince Morales is crafty on the feet. However, I do think that Colby Thicknesse is going to be the craftier one here. 29-28 decision win from Colby Thicknesse. Maybe a split decision. Maybe one of the judges will get it wrong. However, I think Colby Thicknesse wins this one. We move on to the next one. Jacob Malkoun versus GM3. GM3, bro, just hang it up. Just hang it up, Unk. We don't want to see you get absolutely colded every time you get out there anymore. I watched this guy get beat up on by Michelle Oaks, JJK live, and he's just got to hang it up, man. I don't know why he keeps going out here and fighting. Fighting's a dangerous sport. Somebody's got to tell this guy. So he's 38 years old, pushing 40, man, and his last win was Edmund Shabazian, and Edmund Shabazian's getting a bump up the rankings on June 6th. They're going to put him against Brendan Allen. More genius matchmaking here from Hunter Campbell. But, it's just, he hasn't won in a long time. And I don't see a world where he wins this one against Jacob Malkoun. Because Jacob Malkoun, number one, he's a minus 1,000 favorite. And number two, Jacob Malkoun's last matchup against Torres Finney, Torres Finney was kind of just playing punching bag in that fight. However, GM3 is going to be more of a punching bag, and a chinny punching bag at that. Torres Finney was staying in the fight and kind of just jiggling at range because Torres Finney is a tough guy. GM3, he doesn't have the ability to stay on the feet anymore. He's just gonna he's gonna go out there and get chinned every time. And I think that this fight will be no different. I think that this will be a round one knockout for Jacob Malkoun. I don't see Gerald Meerschaert doing anything, nothing offensive wise from GM3 here. It'll be another sad fight to watch GM3 get beat up on. Even though, Gerald Meerschaert has the height advantage, has the reach advantage. As we've seen in his recent fights, none of that really matters for him, sadly. And even though Malkoun's a small middleweight, I think he should be a welterweight based on his size. Maybe even a lightweight. This guy, this is a lightweight size guy. But, he's even good at middleweight. He beat up on Torres Finney pretty bad in his last fight. I think he absolutely schools GM3 in round one and knocks him out. And there you go. That's my prediction for that fight. We move on to the next one. Junior Tafa versus Kevin Christian. I still don't know why we haven't cut both of the Tafa brothers as a billion-dollar organization. However, I think that Junior Tafa actually has a chance to win this one. And, honestly, I was about to pick him to win, but I don't know. I don't know if he's going to win this one, just because the size advantage here is crazy. Kevin Christian he's 6'7", 80-inch reach. he's a lot bigger than Junior Tafa. And but the thing is, the main factor is both of these guys have a common opponent, and it's Billy Alicana. And Junior Tafa was winning his fight against Billy Alicana at one point, and Kevin Christian kind of just got taken down right away and subbed. So, that scares me about my pick for Kevin Christian here, but I am going to go with Kevin Christian, and I think that he's going to win by decision. I don't think Junior Tafa is going to get finished here. Junior Tafa, he lost his last fight to Tuco Tacos, and Tuco Tacos has the finishing potential. Kevin Christian, I don't think he's going to finish Junior Tafa, even though he's a lot bigger here. He's a decent grappler, and I do see that, Kevin Christian... Wait, is he a decent grappler? I think I'm mixing things up. I don't think he's a decent grappler. I think he's good on the feet, but I don't think he's going to knock out Junior Tafa. He's decent on the feet. I think Junior Tafa might get tired here. This is a very low-quality light heavyweight fight, obviously. You would think that these guys are just two apex heavyweights. However, I see Kevin Christian kind of just teeping at range, using his weapons, being long, and I think that he beats Junior Tafa by decision. Maybe if he gets lucky, a round 2 knockout. But I do think that this is going to be a decision win from Kevin Christian. You got to get Junior Tafa out of the UFC if he loses this one. Obviously I'm not gonna rule out Junior Tafa out of this one just because Kevin Christian isn't proven in the UFC yet. He got like immediately finished by Billy Alicana, whereas Junior Tafa did do decent against Billy Alicana until he wasn't. But yeah, I do think that Kevin Christian wins this one. Yeah, we move on. Last fight of the prelims, feature fight on the prelims, Cam Rowston versus Robert Bryczek. And for the ones who know, this is a banger. This is a banger fight. Cam Rowston, he's super long. He's a long middleweight. I don't know why his weight says 203, but I'm pretty sure that he didn't weigh in at 203 for his last fight. Because he schooled Cody Brundage in his last fight. And obviously Cody Brundage is a very, very low-level opponent. But, he did what he needed to do against Cody Brundage. He did what was expected of him. And Robert Bryczek, the last fight, was Brad Tavares, and I do think that he won this one by a knockout, right? Yeah, he won this one by round 3 TKO. And Ihor Potieria beat him earlier in his career. And, if a guy like Ihor Potieria beats you earlier in your career, I do think that Cam Rowston will beat you too. Just because Cam Rowston, he does kind of worry me with his chin sometimes. He leaves his chin up in the air. He looks like the type of guy who would be chinned. Yeah, if you know, you know. Yeah, I'm not saying he looks soy or anything, but he does kind of have that Chase Hooper prototype where it's like, don't let yourself get caught on the chin or else you could get chinned. You could get put out cold. But yeah, I do think that Cam Rowston's going to use his weapons here. I think that he'll hurt Robert Bryczek in round 3, and I think he'll get Robert Bryczek out of there. Robert Bryczek is a tough guy, actually, so this could be a decision. But this is that type of night where there's going to be a lot of finishes up in the air. Like, there's going to be that blood in the water, that violent smell up in the air, that atmosphere in Perth, that I think that Cam Rowston will get a finish for the home crowd. So, I got Cam Rowston KO TKO, round 3. I think he gets it done in this one via finish. And yeah, that's my pick for Cam Rowston. We move on to the main card. Tuivasa versus Louis Sutherland. Louis Sutherland is horrible. If this was anybody else going against Tuivasa at this point, I would pick them. But Louis Sutherland is horrible, and you don't get, horrible in the UFC at least. And, I think he was on roids out of the UFC because look at his build now. And for those who know, I don't have it pulled up, but his build back then, he was strong, bro. Like, he looked like an English Hulk, man. He had veins popping out of his neck. Just a super muscular looking guy. And I thought he was going to be a force in the UFC. And he gets to the UFC and he starts looking like this. So, Louis Sutherland, he's coming off a bad loss to Brando Pericic. He got a blast double takedown at the start of the fight, which scares me for Tuivasa because Tuivasa has absolutely no grappling. Obviously Tuivasa's got the jiu-jitsu tattoo. Come on, bro. Like, having a Tuivasa having a tattoo that says jiu-jitsu is like Beneil Dariush having a tattoo that says chin. So anyways, Yeah, Tai Tuivasa's newfound tattoo, I don't think it's going to help him if Louis Sutherland does end up taking him down. However, I do think that in round one, Tai Tuivasa is going to win via like an aura knockout. You know what I'm saying? He's just going to like throw a combo at Louis Sutherland, and it's just going to be like it might hurt Louis Sutherland a little bit, and he might wobble him, and then the crowd's going to go crazy in Australia. Like if you know the Australian crowds, you know they love Tai Tuivasa. You know, they get louder for Tai Tuivasa than they do Volk. I mean, maybe not. Maybe that's a stretch. But, you know, they get louder for Tai Tuivasa than any other fighter except for Volk. You know? So I think that Tai Tuivasa will probably win via an aura, like a combo. And then, you know, he starts teeing off a little bit. And Louis Sutherland's not out of it yet. But the ref's just going to be dying to stop. I know the ref's going to be dying to stop it for Tai Tuivasa here. So I do think that Tai Tuivasa, you know, he's going to win via aura. You know, he's just going to go out there, throw a combo, stumble Louis Sutherland. I don't think he'll knock him out cold or anything. But yeah, I think that Tai Tuivasa gets him out there in round one. And, you know, if it goes any longer than round one, I'm worried for Tai Tuivasa just because of how horrible his cardio is. He could have beat Taliesin Teixeira in round one if he just threw more punches. But he wanted to put his hands on his hip and rest, you know, after having a full fight camp. And I think he's in better shape for this one as well. So I think Tai Tuivasa gets this one done. He snaps the loss streak. I think you put him against another blob next. And I don't know why his weight says 282. Because that's not... Did he weigh in at 282? I gotta look this up. Tuivasa weigh in. Did he weigh in at 282? Official weight. All right, it doesn't say. But if he weighed in at 282, that's actually hilarious. Because, you know, I mean, it's not that hard to make 265. I mean, obviously Louis Sutherland made the weight just by the skin of his nutsack here. By 0.5 pounds, he made the weight. But yeah, Tai Tuivasa gets this one down, round one, or gets this one done, round one knockout. There you go. Next fight, another matchup of the blobs. Brano Pericic isn't a blob, to be fair, but Shamil Blobziev versus Brano Pericic. And, you know, both these guys are pretty big. Brano Pericic, he's 6'5". You know, he doesn't have, like, he has a more of a light heavyweight type of frame, whereas Shamil Gaziev is just, you know, straight up fat and chest hair. But, you know, Shamil Gaziev is actually not bad. You know, he's pretty decent. His only losses are to Gyro Rosenstrike, who he lost to by being tired. I'm pretty sure he quit on the stool after round 4 or something like that. And then, you know, he just got a right hand up the middle from Waldo Cortez Acosta in his last fight. And, you know, he got not flatlined, but he got TKO'd. You know, he just started holding his face after he got hit. So, yeah, I think Shamil Gaziev, he's good. He's on the older side. He's 36 now. He's coming off a loss to Waldo. His record's good, but Brano Pericic, I think, is a different type of animal. I think Brano Pericic is going to be, in the future, a force to be reckoned with at heavyweight. You know, he had a really, really good fight, or a really, really good performance against Louis Sutherland. You know, he got taken down, but then he got right back up. Louis Sutherland does have pretty good grappling. If he gets you down, you better watch out. People forget, man, Louis Sutherland's a marauder. So, anyways, yeah, Brano Pericic, yeah, he's got really good striking. Not proven in the grappling. If Shamil Gaziev takes him down, I would be worried, but I don't think Shamil Gaziev is going to take him down. I think Shamil is going to start trying to throw. Shamil might come out aggressive, or he'll just come out plodding around, try to pop the jab, and maybe shoot a takedown. But yeah, I mean, I think regardless of the way that Shamil Gaziev approaches this fight, I think Brano Pericic knocking out Shamil Gaziev, hurting him on the feet, anything like that, dropping Shamil Gaziev, starting and finishing sequence, all of that I think is inevitable. And I think that Brano Pericic is going to get this one done in round 1. Maybe Shamil takes him to round 2, honestly. I could see a world where Shamil takes him to round 2 and he's just absolutely gassed because, I mean, obviously Shamil's biggest problem is his cardio. So I think that maybe Shamil takes him to round 2, maybe blobs him round 1, and then he's gassed round 2. And Shamil isn't bad, so, and Brano Pericic, I don't think he has the Waldo Cortez Acosta power. So I could see Shamil Gaziev taking him to round 2. and Brando Pericic just starts teeing off on him once Shamil's tired. And yeah, I think that Brando Pericic just wins this one via cardio mogging Shamil Gaziev in round 2 TKO. And yeah, that's my pick. Brando Pericic TKO round 2. We move on to the next one. They finally found an opponent for Marwan Rahiki here, and it's Ali Schmid. And yeah, Marwan Rahiki, I think this is like a Teba Gautier versus Tristan Vines type of matchup, where it's just like this is a hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby matchup, and obviously in this situation, Marwan Rahiki is the almost say coughing bomb, the hydrogen bomb. I think that he's just going to tee off on Ali Schmid. This is going to be a relatively easy TKO win for him. Maybe I'm doubting Ali Schmid. I don't know much about him. Let's see how he's won. Yeah, I mean, he's finished all 4 of his fights, but he's also 4-2, and he's doing this on short notice. And I don't think he's an Ethan Ewing. Therefore, excuse me. Therefore, Marwan Rahiki, round 1 TKO. I shouldn't have to explain myself much here. I know I'm picking a lot of round 1 TKO knockouts, all that type of good stuff. But I mean, Marwan Rahiki in his last performance against what's his name? Fucking out. I'm blanking out. Harry Hardwick. Yeah, against Harry Hardwick. He knocked his jaw like off the hinges. Marwan Rahiki's got crazy power at featherweight, and I know sometimes Harry Hardwick can be a punching bag, but Harry Hardwick was coming out aggressive. Harry Hardwick probably won round 1 off of Marwan Rahiki in that fight, which scares me for when Marwan Rahiki moves up the division. However, I think that a Marwan Rahiki TKO win is inevitable for Ali Schmid here, and yeah, there you go. Marwan Rahiki wins via TKO round 1. We move on to the next one. Tim Elliott versus Steve Erceg. The first big ranked fight of the card, despite Shamil Gaziev being ranked. That's not a big ranked fight, but this is a pretty decently big ranked fight that has some weight to it in the flyweight division. And I know Tim Elliott's unk, but he's still very awkward. He's very awkward, very hard to train for. He does a lot of weird things. He submitted Kai Asakura, and this guy's got a nasty guillotine. He's just a really, really awkward fighter, and he's hard to train for. But at the same time, Steve Erceg, he's a really technical striker, and he's just very basic. And I think a guy like that who doesn't try too hard against Tim Elliott I think that's the best that's the best base for beating Tim Elliott. You get a guy like Kai Asakura who tries to be real crafty out there. You can't like if you're fighting a guy like Tim Elliott, you kind of got to stick to your basics, because that's exactly how you beat a guy like Tim Elliott, who's just jumping in the air, trying to throw a flying body teep, So I think that Steve Erceg, he's going to chop the leg kicks. He's going to stick to his fucking hell, I'm blanking again. He's going to stick to his boxing, his fundamentals. And yeah, I think that Steve Erceg, he's going to get this one done via decision, a 29-28, a close decision. This is one of the ones I'm more worried about for Steve Erceg. However, I do see Steve Erceg just sticking to the grappling, sticking to his fundamentals. And yeah, I do think that Tim Elliott, he's crafty. He's the crafty unk of the flyweight division. Him and Charles Johnston are holding it down for the old guard of the flyweights. But regardless, I think Steve Erceg wins this one by a 29-28 decision. Get my boy up the rankings. We are going to win this one. And yeah, there you go. That's my pick for Steve Erceg. Tim Elliott versus Steve Erceg. Steve Erceg, 29-28 decision. We move on to the next one. This is the co-main event of the evening, and it's a good one. Beneil Dariush versus Quillan Salkilld, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. And I think that Quillan Salkilld is sadly going to bomb our boy Beneil. And it's going to be a sad day because we still love Beneil Dariush. I know we just made a video on him criticizing his chin. Go like the video, by the way. It's the most recent upload in the channel. But yeah, Quillan Salkilld, the guardian of Pakistan. He's beat an Israeli guy. He's beat an Indian. He's beat someone from his own country. He's beat an Australian. he's beat a guy from, I think, Afghanistan. Where's Hack from? I think Hack is Yeah, I think Hack is Moroccan. So yeah, there you go. He's beat an African guy. So this is gonna be another one for the Guardian of Pakistan here. Obviously, Iran borders Pakistan, and I think he'll hold it down for Pakistan here. Um, if you're a Pakistani guy, if any of my audience is Pakistani, you gotta love Quillen Salkilld, bro. He is very entertaining, and he's a very good prospect. He bombs people by knockout. He finishes you by submission. The fight that did concern me, though, is him versus Yanal Ashmouz. Yanal Ashmouz, he's a shorter guy, and, he was getting off some of the offensive wrestling on Quillen Salkilld. He was bombing him on the chin with some shots, but Salkilld was doing a good job turning his head with it. Beneil Dariush gets crafty at times, but he does get dropped in every fight. He got dropped by Renato Moicano. And that's aging better because of Moicano's performance against Chris Duncan. However, a guy like Moicano shouldn't be dropping Dariush, who on paper, has the skills to eke out a win, has the offensive wrestling to eke out a win against a lighter guy like Renato Moicano. Obviously Beneil Dariush is I think he's 1-4 or something like that. 1-4, maybe 1-3. Yeah, he's 1-3 in his last 4. And I think that, he's on the decline. This lightweight Unk is different from the rest. Gamrot is very good. Gamrot's got very, very slick wrestling. And I know Dariush beat Gamrot, but it was a fluke injury from Gamrot. And, Moicano's a lot craftier. He's got the BJJ. He's got the fundamentals. He's not that chinny. And also, he's hard to get a shot on. Beneil Dariush in his last fight against Benoit Saint-Denis, Benoit Saint-Denis, all he had to do was cause some chaos, and then he just went like this to Beneil Dariush, and he went out cold. So I think that all Salkilld needs to do here is cause some chaos against Beneil Dariush, and he'll get the TKO win, and I think that's what's going to happen. However, the difference is I think that Beneil Dariush will take him into round 2, because Beneil Dariush will do better than a lot of people expect. So I think that Quillen Salkilld gets this one done via a brutal KO in round 2. And Beneil Dariush gets slumped out cold. Unk's got to hang up the gloves. Even though we love Benny Dariush. If you don't love Benny Dariush, I mean, come on, what are you doing? What's he done that's bad? So, he's not that boring of a fighter either. Beneil Dariush, he's a cool guy and stuff, but he's 80 years old, as you can see with the gray hair right here. Unk needs to hang it up, bro, especially if he gets bombed out cold by Quillen Salkilld in this one, which I think he will. So, I think Quillen Salkilld gets this one done via a round 2 knockout. And, yeah, that's my pick. We move on to the main event. This is the main event of the evening. And this is going to be a good one. This is going to be such a good fight. Good job, Hunter Campbell. This is really good. This is a really good fight that Hunter Campbell and the boys at the UFC put together. And, I mean, I'm so hyped for this one. And I'm torn on who wins. Because there's so many variables to pick apart here. Because Jack Della Maddalena, he's got really good boxing in the pocket. But the con of that is he needs to be in boxing range. And it's going to be hard for him to get inside of boxing range against a rangy guy like Carlos Prates. When he's at a 5-inch reach disadvantage, when he's at a 2-inch height disadvantage. So, I think that's going to be the problem for JDM here is getting within boxing range. And, Jack Della Maddalena, he has some decent grappling, underrated grappling. I know we just saw him get blobbed by Islam, but I think he's got good enough grappling to, impose it on Carlos Prates. So I would be interested to see if he tries to, throw a double leg at Carlos Prates. Go with the Leon Edwards approach in round 1. We all saw how that worked out for Leon Edwards, but I think the reason that Leon Edwards stopped trying to take Prates down is because Prates was getting it in his head with the trash talk. Leon is a guy that he'll let your trash talk get to his ego. So and obviously JDM he's very stoic. JDM's. If he can get into boxing range, I would be scared for Carlos Prates in this one. And I want JDM to win. JDM is my boy. We are beating Carlos Prates in this one. We are eking out the win over Carlos Prates. However, I think this is a bad matchup for him just because Carlos Prates, he's really rangy and he's got the power. He's got the one hitter quitter in his hands. At distance, I would be scared to see if JDM gets hit with a spinning attack, gets hit with a long kick, front kick up the middle. One of Carlos Prates' long rangy weapons, that step in right hand that he knocked out Leon Edwards with. Anything like that, I think that JDM. If JDM gets hit by that, I think he's gonna go out, and it's not about how good of a chin you have. It's just about how much power Carlos Prates has in his hands. Carlos Prates has nukes in his hands, and I think that JDM, if he gets hit clean, which I mean Bilal was kind of damaging his face in this fight. So not in this fight, in his fight with Bilal, Bilal was landing some shots on him. And if Bilal can land shots on you, Canelo hands, not to diss the King of Chicago, Canelo hands, but I mean, if Bilal can put hands on you like that, I don't know what Carlos Prates is going to do. And I know Carlos Prates doesn't have the boxing style, and Bilal Muhammad does. But, if you're getting hit by strikes from Bilal Muhammad, I don't know if you're going to survive Carlos Prates. And that really tears me in this one. This tears me down the middle because I think that Jack Della Maddalena, I think that he can be able to get in boxing range against Carlos Prates. So I think that I'm going to pick JDM to win this one. And the thing about it is, I think that he'll just, he'll use his head movement, maybe a Mexican boxing style kind of, to get into that boxing range. We've seen him use the Mexican style throughout his career in boxing. And, he's got that mix of like the Mexican style and the British style. And, that's what's super cool about JDM. He's got sick boxing. He's got decent kicks. I think that he'll be able to keep Carlos Prates guessing with his strikes. And then, he can also mix it up with the wrestling if needed. And I think that he should mix it up with the wrestling if he wants to win this one. Because Carlos Prates' takedown defense, despite being long and rangy, is not very good. We've seen Ian Gary take him down. We've seen Leon Edwards take him down. We've seen Jeff Neal. I think Jeff Neal got a takedown on him or something. Let's see. Did Jeff Neal take down Carlos Prates? I'm not going to look at it. Never mind. I'm not doing all that work. But, yeah, I think that JDM will be able to get in the boxing range. I think that he'll be able to get in tight with Carlos Prates' paws. And, yeah, I think that JDM is going to win this one by decision. I don't see him finishing Carlos Prates. JDM even said that he sees this one go in 25 minutes. And, he's realistic with himself. And I think that he knows if he's going to win this one, he's going to win by decision. And that's what's going to happen. So I think that JDM gets a not a complete domination. I think this is going to be a 48-47. I think Carlos Prates will be able to find the shots at times. Maybe he wobbles JDM in this one in a round, and that's how he takes a round off him, something like that. But I don't see JDM getting finished by Carlos Prates. I'm worried for him. I will state that. I am worried for JDM. Like Carlos Prates, obviously he's got the nukes in his hands. He's got the long rangey weapons. Carlos Prates, he's a nightmare matchup for a guy that's JDM size. However, I just think JDM's a different dog, man. I think that he's going to be able to get in the inside of Carlos Prates, rip to the body, maybe throw a 3 to the body and a 3 to the head, and then just rip him up the middle, maybe stumble Carlos Prates. We saw Pillow Hands Ian Gary do that to Carlos Prates. So I think that regardless of the size difference here, I think that JDM's still a dangerous matchup for Carlos Prates. And I think JDM gets this one done and breaks the welterweight curse. So, that's my prediction for this one. Yeah, I think this is going to be like an Aussie sweep on this card. Let's check. I mean, Marwan Rahiki's technically Australian. I know Ali Schmid says New Zealand here, but Marwan Rahiki's technically Australian. I said Kevin Christian's going to win. Okay, so Kevin Christian is the only Aussie, or is the only non-Aussie that I have winning on this card. So yeah, I've got almost an Aussie sweep here. Yeah, so make sure, that's my picks for the video. Make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. I'm going to be streaming as early as I can tomorrow. Obviously this is on Perth time, so I'll try to wake up as early as possible to watch as many of the fights that I can. I will be on stream. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.